11th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meeting, the Albany Housing Authority. We'll start the meeting with an introduction of our accountant and the presentation of our financial statements. Welcome, Michael.
Good
Good to see
afternoon,
you
Mike.
again.
How are you?
Appreciate you taking the time to do this presentation and for all the fine work that you've done. If you'd like to proceed, we'll get going with that, right?
Okay. Mike, you did get the email I sent you earlier, right? You have the letter?
I did.
Okay. All right.
Did. Thank
So,
you.
we issued the audit report by March 31st, and it was approved by REAC. So the 2022 work is done. They've accepted the audit. There weren't any issues. The report, just to rehash this, the report, we basically issue 3 reports with your audited financial statement. We give a report on the financial statements, and we give a report on the government auditing standards, which is also known as a Yellow Book report, and then a separate report on compliance requirements for the major programs that were tested. So for the report on the financial statements, we gave an unqualified opinion, which means that those financial statements were reported in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. You can't get a better opinion than an unqualified opinion. For the Yellow Book report, that was also an unqualified opinion, and there were no findings of compliance with respect to the major programs. And I believe the major program that was tested this year was the Capital Fund program. And let me just look, it was the Capital Fund program and the low rent public housing program. So there were no compliance issues with the way the management and staff ran those programs for the current year. So the one topic, as I mentioned in that letter to you, Mike, is the authority was required to adapt GASB 87 this year, and GASB 87 dealt with the treatment of revenue from leases. Now, the Albany Housing Authority has quite a number of leases for which it derives revenue from. It has a number of cell towers on various rooftops, and it also receives some revenues from commercial rents. So what GASB 87 required was the recognition of the receivable, the amount, the present value of those leases with a offsetting deferred. If you look on page 15 of the report, page 16 of the report, you can see that they're under deferred inflows or resources. You can see that there are lease revenues now which were added to pensions and the OPEB adjustments. So we're required to show the present value of what the leases are worth and defer income. And then on the revenue side, we have to recognize interest income, which was based on an internal borrowing rate, which we worked on with Key Bank. Now, that was the biggest change to the financial statements for this year, as opposed to last year. Is there any questions on those on that new accounting policy that was adopted this year? Okay, so
you did mention the cell tower revenue. Where is that on there? How much was that?
I'm sorry?
That's not actually rents or anything. Just trying to.
The cell tower revenue is now shown the present value of that is now shown on the balance sheet under other assets on page 15. And when the money comes in, it'll offset the receivable, and we will recognize an interest portion of that, and we will then amortize the liability.
Okay, so that's leases receivable, you said?
Right, because that was part of GASB 87. We're required to have that. We're required to adopt that accounting presentation now.
Thank you.
If you turn to page 17, just to highlight, that's the statement of operating revenues and expenses. You know, we can see that the authority, even though it shows an excess of operating expenses over revenues as a negative number, if you factor in the depreciation above that, the income from operations was about $1.6 million. So in terms of running smoothly, things were running well this year. Our revenues, yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, you can see it's comparative. Our revenues were roughly the same as they were last year, and expenses were a little lower in the with reference to the bad debt on the tenants. And you can see that the bad debt on tenants, that increase, that's all due to the additional allowances to get rid of the effects during COVID, where we had large receivables that needed to be written down, allowed for until we could see how much we collect. I guess the housing authorities has working with that ERAP program, but under that program, you're not allowed to start any eviction or any proceedings against the tenant until a period of time which that expires, that ERAP program. So we did set up an allowance for the uncollectible accounts, but there is some hope that some of that money will be collected. That is not just attributed. That's not just indicative of Albany. That's seen in all our clients, that there's these large write-offs for tenant accounts due to the COVID pandemic.
Would you attribute the decline in administration year over year?
Mike, I'll have to get back to you on the primary reason for that. I have to go back to the work papers and look at our analytical review. I can get you. I'll have that answer. I'll have that answer to you by the end of today.
I don't think he heard that.
Oh, I didn't. I'm sorry.
No, it was a comment based on some earlier discussions. No worries. Thank you. If you could, though, I'd appreciate it. It's a pretty hefty number.
Yeah, I'll have that to you by the end of today. As soon as I get off the meeting, I'll run through the work papers and I'll get that difference. That is the main highlights of this report, unless anyone has any questions. It's a rather large report. But it does encompass all your component units. Those financial statements are included in here for the discretely presented component units for all the tax credit properties that we have. Those financial statements are listed as supplementary information in the back.
Anybody have any questions for Michael?
No.
Well, I would, again, thank you for Smart on the phone. Would you say that you sort of alluded to that already, that we were like coming in like all the other clients that you have? Did anything stand out that would concern you with all of us, or because of COVID and those kind of things?
So like I said, the concern was the large allowances that are being recorded for the tenant rents. With the housing authority, you get a subsidy from HUD. So if the tenant rents if they're delinquent on their rents, there is still part of that subsidy that comes in. The item where you have to be of a lot of concern is with the tax credit properties, because those properties, a lot of them are market rate, or there is no subsidy on those. There's some project-based vouchers, but a lot of them, there's no subsidy. So if you're not collecting the rents or working hard to kind of go after the tenants, work with them to get in a repayment agreement, it makes it harder to run those programs. And we've kind of expressed that to people. We fully understand that they are vulnerable people, tenants that they do need some assistance and help. But at the same time, it's hard to provide services to the tenants if the revenues aren't being paid, especially in the tax credit properties.
And so on the second part of that, do you give recommendations to the housing authorities, or do you stay away from that?
What do you mean by recommendations? The HUD has some prescribed policies that we're supposed to follow in terms of collecting delinquent rents, in terms of notices that are supposed to be sent out in 10 days. They get followed up with, you can enter into judgments for repayment, legal repayment agreements. And at the end of that process, eviction, which is obviously the last resort, because you obviously don't want to put, people in that position. But I see a lot of housing authorities really try to work into these repayment agreements and try and work with tenants in any way to pay the rents that were previously unpaid, because it does affect, and Albany's in a pretty good position cash wise, but it does affect some authorities' abilities to provide services, because they're dependent upon those collection of those rents to provide those services to the tenants in terms of maintenance. And if there's, authority paid utilities or things of that nature, it does somewhat impact that ability.
And you just answered my other question, which is Albany's in a good position. So thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
Mike? This
Yes.
is probably something I wanted to ask you offline, but do you deal at all with collateralized deposits, or look at all at how, HUD requires, or what HUD's requirements are for collateralizing housing authority deposits?
We do. HUD does require that the banks that you deal with have a identified collateral in place to cover your assets. We do
Right.
have those agreements for Albany with Key Bank. If you need
Yep.
copies of
And
those,
it's
I do
100
have them in our file.
102%, correct?
I'm not sure the percentage, Mike, but all the assets, they have enough assets to cover all your money that are in the bank. I don't know if it's 102%. I know they've identified specific assets that
For
cover
securities.
your funds.
So you answered part one. I just wanted to know where the agreements were.
I have them if you need copies of them. I do have the agreements.
No, I'm all right with that. You deal with GUDPA at all in New Jersey?
Yeah, so GUDPA doesn't excuse you from getting those collateral agreements. Pennsylvania has Act 72.
Yeah.
In addition to New Jersey has GUDPA. I don't think New York has one of those agreements.
It does not, but does HUD allow you to use GUDPA for housing authority in Jersey?
They do have it. We do reference it in the audits, but we also have the specific collateral agreements as well. Because I don't think that GUDPA is enough. I don't think HUD recognizes that as enough. You have to have the collateral agreements in place. I don't think they will even deposit the funds into the account unless those collateral agreements are in place. I think you have to provide those to HUD when you designate the bank account for the funds to be EFT from the US Treasury.
Thank you. What I was asking is just so everybody here is aware, public funds by law in New York State, in other states as well, but are required to be insured above and beyond the $250,000 federal security. So a bank who holds our deposits is required to hold securities. Most often it's U.S. Treasuries in place should the bank, fail. And we're in a situation now where I don't think KeyBank is in any jeopardy by any stretch of the imagination, but banks have failed, and we want to make sure our deposits are insured above and beyond.
Right, because you have substantial credit risk. You have deposits that exceed $250,000 with KeyBank, so you are covered with those. So if the KeyBank were to fail, you would be covered $250, plus they would have their collateral agreements that would restore your funds.
Have to sell the securities and use those.
Right.
That
You
sale
wouldn't lose any money.
in New Jersey. I asked because I just went through an issue, but Jersey has a different collateral. In the state of New York, it's typically done through a third-party bank. So KeyBank, I think, uses Bank of New York to buy the securities, hold the securities, pledge those securities should our deposits, be in jeopardy at KeyBank because KeyBank fails or there's a run on the bank or something along those lines. Our deposits will be returned to us.
Okay.
I just wanted, I'm curious where we held our collateral statements, not where we held the collateral.
Yeah, if you need copies of those, Mike, I have those for KeyBank.
And yeah, I'd be curious if, and Cheyenne, perhaps you could look into this as well with Michael, if they're updated.
They are. We get them. I believe the bank does them every 6 months. I have the one for June 22. So they are current. Every year we get them for you.
Okay, so they're signed by Peter, or would you?
Hold on, Mike. I don't know if they're signed. I think they just provide hold on, I'll look right now.
You mentioned that it's through June 22, and they're updated every 6 months, so.
That's remarkable that they update them every 6 months, because that's on the bank to do it.
That's what he was saying.
And I wouldn't, we don't.
So, Mike, it says key collateral. Let me see if I can share the screen. I'll put this up there.
It's a relevant question.
Oh, yeah, you disabled screen sharing, but so it is as of 6/30/22, and they have a par value on deposit for you for $10,378,460.
Okay.
And it is not signed, it's just a computerized statement indicating the security number and coupon, the description, the issue date, the par value, and the market value. I'll forward this to you with the explanation for the administrative costs. I think there were several of them, but I'll give you the description of what the change was from last year to this year. And I'll send this agreement with it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
Anybody else have any further questions? I believe we're all set. Mike,
Okay,
thank you for your good work and appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you again next year.
okay, thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. You're welcome. I was going to say you're welcome to stay for the entirety of the meeting if you really want to wait some time.
He's the only one in the office.
Move to item number 3, approval of the minutes from our June 13th, 2023 meeting minutes. Can I get a motion to approve? Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Approved. And item number 07-23-13, resolution to approve contracts for architectural and engineering services. I don't know if you want to discuss this or you want to discuss this.
I can discuss it.
Okay.
So we went out to bid for engineering and architectural, mostly architectural services. I believe we received 6 responses, and I'm just going to move over to the right here. And the decision or the recommendation at least is to enter into contracts for 2 of the 6 people that were entities. Amount of architectural work that is required here at the Housing Authority. So I think the decision is that you'll hire 2, and then we would divvy up the work among those 2 as out to be in accordance with HUD requirements, state law requirements, recommendations that are set out in.
Any further questions, comments?
Yeah, just a quick one. Were any minority businesses included in that at all?
Anticipated that question because you do like to ask it. I don't know the answer to that question. I can get that to you.
The staff is usually.
We definitely would send it out to minority and women business-owned entities. Whether any actually submitted, I can't answer that question.
For most contracts, that's the biggest problem. You know, it's the response, it's having the proper scalability of the African American, the minority-owned entities to actually handle the contract. And I guess that's where subcontracting would, and if possible, but.
Yeah, I think that's probably tougher on the architectural sort of stuff. They wouldn't be subbing out too much of the work. Yeah, I mean, it's a concern. We have large-scale projects which require large-scale service providers. And we get it out to as many people as we can, but we can't control the.
I think that's a regional that on the larger.
Not just with architecture, but just every industry.
Yeah.
Something that, as African Americans, are going to have to correct, and in order to be competitive, and also change the financial mix. But thank you. It was the answer that I expected, but I got gotta throw it out.
I do think historically, we've been pretty good about getting notification out in recognition of the challenges.
Yeah.
It is really about scalability,
It is.
and
but
how do
no-
you bite off? I think the answer may be how to bite off portions of contracts as opposed to entirety of a contract,
Yeah.
and maybe share some of the proverbial wealth.
That's what I was saying, you know, subcontracting comes in, but like it said, you know, it's harder with the architectural. But looking at the entirety of it, African-American, companies, businesses, organizations, they're gonna need help to scale. Oftentimes, systemically, it's harder for them to qualify to get some of the same types of loans and assistances that others can freely get.
I think it's hardest to get, not to cut you off, I'm sorry, to get the first job, right? It's to get the first time to get your first housing authority. So if you want to do housing authority work as an architect, getting that first contract is the first one, then you can list it as, okay, I'm doing this sort of
Right.
work.
You got history.
And so you gotta almost, and Albany Housing Authority in itself might be too large to be that first one.
And what firms locally, if you're trying to keep it in the community, what firms locally? Very few.
Just almost none.
Well, even,
On that scale.
even not minority owned, there's very few. You know, you're gonna have to go outside the radius of the community, if you will, or even the city.
To a lot of the kids that go to school for engineering leave.
Go to another
Go somewhere else
state,
where they
yeah.
can get the opportunities. Yeah, we just don't, bring in that attraction in the city.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry.
So, and so then maybe for the party part in this, we could maybe scale down. I mean, we need, the work is the work, right? We need it, but scale down some of the projects or jobs to break them up to allow for that, to more.
Or we can ask them to look for some contract. And bring in,
And-
away from a company, one of these other companies, around those insurance. There's nothing. Two companies. Ask me what they speak. And, it's becoming a bigger issue, whereas, in their pricing might be better. The relationship with them, or the housing authority own policy, but we're not allowed to.
I know we're off, and I want to get right back onto our agenda, but is there any way that there's something written within the contract, whereas a larger umbrella company can bring in a smaller minority-owned business under their insurance?
The company would have to have directly audited every year, so what they look at, from those jobs, they look at the look at the certified payroll and meet with, our insurance company over and show them that we are insured. So if that goes out to a company that I can't prove, companies can hire other people.
What you're seeing more and more of is strategic partnerships by larger firms, if you will, to address their needs for, DEI issues. So, law firm, for example, will partner with a minority-owned law firm in order to attract, to attract business. It makes more sense. It addresses their challenges and promotes the smaller minority-owned firm. Seeing it a lot in some of the other areas of the state in terms of public entities and their procurement needs, and not being able to satisfy things like insurance or other issues, or just putting something out to bid and a minority firm can't, address the entirety of the bid specs. So a bigger firm, in order to address their needs, partners with the minority firm to do the work, while not necessarily awarding the work directly to the minority firm.
Of course.
Right.
I guess my bigger piece is trying to get minority businesses from point A to point B, which ultimately we want to get to Z, which is full ownership. And that changes the financial dynamics of our people. And this, like I say, this is a discussion that can go so many different ways. But that's my goal in trying to help and promote African Americans as far as business owners and organizations, so that we don't have to take a piece of another entity, so that we can have enough to feed our kids, so that we can have enough to pay for our college education. I want to be able to
Figure out how to pay for college education, let me know. I
Matter
just
of
wrote
fact.
my last check, and I'll be broke till I'm 180.
Understood. Let's take the college education off the table. Let's say a house, so that we got some equity here. But anyway, that's the reason I'm bringing it all up, because I do have a heart to see it. I've seen us in poverty my entire life, and I want that turned around, and I don't know how to do it, but I know it can be done, and it needs to be done.
The timing, and again, we are sort of off topic here.
Yes, we are.
The timing is
It's your fault.
The timing is now. I think you're seeing a lot of response from corporate America to address this. So, my own perspective, I work for a company where one of the 5 minority African American CEOs of top 500 Fortune 500 company is the chairman of my bank, Jay Jones, African American. And I think, our priorities about addressing diversity, equity, and inclusion issues are very much front and center, and you're seeing more and more of that. I think, like anything else, when big companies start to do that, it'll trickle down to some of the smaller companies they do their business with. It's a priority. Our company, it becomes a priority for the people we lend to, it becomes a priority for the communities we lend into, how we address employment issues in our company. Certainly, you guys know better than I do, but I do feel like it's getting better. At least being recognized. The switch can't be just flipped.
Correct.
Right?
100%.
So.
And what I often say, Mike, is that we have to find a way to work within the system to change the system.
Yeah.
We can't, scream from the outside like it's happened with relationships, around the nation. Marching and screaming and rioting is not going to change things. It's going to be learning the system, working within the system, and then changing it. And that's
It's shifting economics. It's all it is.
That's because, like she mentioned, pumping them out, our business, right? Insurance,
An insurance company.
that's a good one too.
that's where it's at, because a nonprofit, in order to get certain grants, you have to have certain insurance. If you don't have those insurance, you can't get the grant. So and so you gotta decide where you're spending your money. You know, and so if you're gonna pay for an insurance, like say, $50,000, and the grant's only $50,000, where are you making the money?
Because of what's going on. 200% increase. Just to be able to insurance. A lot of maneuvering and cost. Companies that we own.
I just dealt with
It's a
crazy,
lot.
it's crazy. We had, there's an entity, in municipality not very far from here, where somebody just sent the wire $35 million to pay off what they thought was paying off a bond, and they sent it to someplace in freaking Uzbekistan, and the money is gone, and they're turning to the bank and saying, where's our money? The bank's saying, well, you authorized the wire, and they are broke. They won't be able to pay payroll until it gets figured out.
When it gets figured out.
There's fraud out there, the way people are doing things. You've gotta be insured against it. Asked about our deposits.
Yeah, that was a good question.
Anyway,
Thank you.
no, these are issues, obviously, that they affect our tenants, they affect our bottom line as well, so it's important to have the discussions periodically, I think.
But Mike, not everybody is comfortable talking about it because it is an African-American predominant issue. I appreciate you just allowing us to digress a little bit.
I wish we could hold a bigger forum to address it at some point. Nice project for somebody in the housing authority to work on who, wants to be the future budget director.
I can also look at what exceptions might be out there for the normal procurement process, in order to more applicants for. Generally speaking, the rules are very strict.
Sure they are.
But I'll take a look and I'll be able to report back next meeting as to whether there's any exceptions.
Thank you.
That's great. I know there's some exceptions when it comes to construction. In my initiative with, the Eastern contractors, they bought out a few of them, but still African Americans didn't qualify. So even within that, and so we've got to get Americans up so that they are able to be sustained at a certain level and bring in enough resource, enough people, enough help to get the job done and get it done timely, because you guys all have, when you send out a bid on, you guys have time constraints. And if the company that you hire, you contract, can't get it done within that amount of time, it's a waste of time.
Right.
So I'm understanding all of that. And like I say, a lot of it is on our shoulders, but we also need assistance to get to that next place. Now that Mark's back, we can get back on time.
I need a motion to approve.
I would make that motion.
May I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Item number 07-23-14, resolution approving the lease of a 2020 Ford Transit cargo van from Depola Ford LLC for use as the maintenance crew, and authorizing the executive director to execute an agreement and related documentation regarding same. I talked to Chiquita about this. Our current van, we made executive staff made a decision about obtaining contracts rather than putting that out to bid. Did some financial analysis, looking to hire some painters. Going to take the current van and give it to the painters as a crew van. By the way, if you know anybody looking for a job in the painting world, I believe we have some openings. Full-time jobs, I think they're reasonably.
Several positions.
reasonably paid,
We go on.
and the new van will take the place of the current van's, usage. Summarize that.
Sounds,
Also reflective of just like the crazy.
how many people are you looking to hire?
Open.
Are those the painters? That's probably what I was more specifically.
I think there was five.
Oh,
Five,
okay.
she said.
What was, requirement for paying, it's not a paying, or they need reference?
On
So the company?
It's on the website.
It's all on the website, but, and, you know, like I tell people, if you're painting in a vacant unit with as an employee,
If you do the math from that perspective, it made more sense to, rather than put it out to bid,
Sure.
to have somebody work for us. It's smart. Yeah, can I get a motion?
Motion, Mark.
Motion to approve?
Made that motion.
Okay, can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Item number 07-23-15, resolution approving the lease of a 2023 Ford Escape from Ford Motor Credit for use by the executive director, and authorizing the executive director to execute an agreement and related documents regarding same. When we hired Chiquita, part of that legacy contract that we had with the previous executive director, provided a vehicle, and part of the contract and negotiation for employment that we had with Chiquita was to provide a vehicle. Cost has gone up somewhat, the cost of everything, so not too complicated here. Get a motion to approve. In favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, President, is when he gets it. You're present to him.
You have, committee reports?
Of course, there's none. The crew has been working on National Night Out. Entities, Albany, Story, Ezra, and Green Street, Lincoln Park. So we'll basically, have different people, working, we have site coordinators, and so Tim and, who has been doing a great job. I'll probably have them email you guys more of where we're at with that. So, because we're meeting with each site and making sure that they're all set. And really provide financial support. We're providing like in-kind, like tables, grills, tents, housing authority. Also providing, we're giving them like coordination. We're doing the coordination for them, connecting them with partners. Fundraising and those kind
The black too.
of. National Night Out, each site is doing their own thing when it comes to that. And to be honest with you, with school supplies, a shift in that. A lot of people give out school supplies. On the flip side, a lot of the schools are not really using supplies for their kids. So I got out of the business of doing school supplies. Especially when I spoke to one parent, she's like, yeah, I have like 5 backpacks. Why, and she only had 1 kid. Why did you collect 5? Everyone's doing school supplies, is the point. And so,
It is though. You think about it.
It's being greedy,
flooded.
it's just being greedy.
Sure, there's a lot of people there are.
but there isn't a need there as much as there used to be.
Gave us their list, then we bought the school supplies on the list, just to make sure that it was gonna be used. A lot of times, book bag, notebooks, and then they go to school and the teacher's like,
That's true. But that's, all I have.
Help here, I've been waiting for Tim to,
Yeah, he's coming to you.
okay,
He's coming to you.
I didn't know. I'm just trying to make it simple, tell me what you need, and I'll get it, what you
Right.
need.
And then so for the office and the ladies that are working over there, gonna get like an update of their work, the stuff they're working on? Because they haven't been introduced to the board or the programming that's going on, has it?
Oh, yeah, yes, they have.
Why don't
Was
we,
I not here for it?
we can do
why don't
is
have
we
them
can
come in
come to them.
next?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, someone coming to.
So we have a staff here that does coordinate some of the community
Oh,
activities.
okay, oh, okay,
And Tim is, I think, in charge of that.
oh, okay,
The family sufficient.
oh, okay.
Family
Oh,
over on Green Street.
Yes, I mean, I don't know him, but okay,
Be a good, presentation to have them come in.
okay.
They're doing more than just, they're helping us coordinate the night out stuff, but
They do
that's
a lot.
not their primary,
Yeah,
so.
exactly. Whole calendar of events that they.
And summer food is happening too. Right, which I think about. Always a need, that's a need. Food, we're always hungry. 'Cause here,
Wearing a tie today, you can do whatever. you
no, the issue is that, of 5 cities today, I think there's like, not today, but this whole year, homicide, and I know 4 of them. Someone involved with 4 of them. Scares me, because be around them. That's right. Crazy, but something about, and it's not just an Albany issue, I always say that, it's everywhere, but
It is.
Albany's small. I don't like the phrase small, but
right.
blessings and the curses. We all know each other. Should be small enough that we can fix some of these problems.
I think,
And more manageable anyway.
currently, and it's not public knowledge. So I'm going to go out on a limb and trust that.
Well, this is a public meeting.
This is a public meeting,
We're
so
still on, okay.
we could,
So
we could
thank
make
you
a,
for the reminder.
we could make a motion to adjourn and continue the discussion if you'd like.
Yes.
I
because
will
it
make
does
a
affect
motion
open
to
house.
adjourn. Will I ask for a motion to
I'll
adjourn?
make that
Wait, we have
motion.
one thing first.
One thing.
I know Chiquita emailed this to all of you.
Yep.
But we just wanted to make sure you all had this. The housing authority scored as a high performer,
Yes.
which is very hard to do during these times.
So for the record, should acknowledge that, and it is hard to do, particularly if you look at the report where we lost any points, it was on the financial side, but everybody is losing points because of the lack of rent collection throughout the housing authority industry. To be able to be a high performer, my knowledge, locally, we're the only one. I do a lot of work with housing authorities, so it is quite a testament to the good, hard work of the staff here. So please extend that to everybody on behalf of the board.
So, to that point, you guys are having usually I don't get invited, but that's not what I'm getting at.
Invited this year?
I don't think so.
You're never invited.
I'm never invited.
Yeah, no.
I'm usually busy during the summer anyway, so, I
Well, maybe
think-
that's why you're not invited.
I think we should, as a board, you know,
We
should give something to the.
we should acknowledge it at very least, have something to share with the staff. if that's all. Maybe I will take the initiative to coordinate that amongst the board members. We might have to distribute, but we will see. When is that event?
Mention breaker.
Need to decide on midway
Definitely.
according to the regulations.
We'll, I'll make a
I will make that motion.
Ask for a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Everyone is welcome to stay. We are adjourned. I am pressing the red button, or are we going offline?